The first time I realized blood doesn't always mean loyalty was the night I heard chains in my brother's basement. I didn't come to Ethan's house looking for answers. I came because something felt off. The air was too still. The lights were on at 1:43 a.m., and my brother never stayed up past midnight unless he was celebrating or hiding something. I told myself I was being paranoid. In my world, paranoia keeps you alive. I let myself in without knocking. The marble floors were spotless. The house smelled like expensive cologne and lemon polish. Normal. Too normal. Then I heard it. A faint metallic drag beneath my shoes. Not pipes. Not the furnace. A slow scrape, followed by breathing that didn't belong to the house. I stood there for a full 5 seconds, listening. My pulse steady. My mind not. The sound came again. Softer this time. From below. I followed it down the hallway, past the family photos on the wall. Ethan at 12. Ethan at 16. Ethan smiling like he'd never broken a single rule in his life. The basement door was closed. Locked. That was new. Ethan didn't lock doors inside his own house. I rested my hand on the knob. Cold metal. I remember thinking, if I open this door, something changes. I didn't know what. Just that it would. The lock gave easily. The stairs creaked under my weight as I stepped down, the single bulb overhead flickering like it wasn't sure it wanted to witness what was waiting. The air was damp. Concrete. Dust. And fear. I saw her before she saw me. Sitting against the far wall. Wrists secured to a metal pipe running along the foundation. Not hurt. Not bleeding. Just pale. Exhausted. Her hair tangled around her shoulders. Her eyes wide. Not with panic, but with recognition. She thought I was the same as him. I didn't speak right away. I didn't know what to say. In my life, I've ordered men to move mountains with a sentence. But standing there, looking at her, words felt useless. Her voice came first. Quiet. Hoarse. If you're here to check on me, don't bother. The chains shifted when she moved. The sound scraped across my chest. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger. Not power. Something closer to shame. Who did this? I asked, though I already knew. She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You know who. Footsteps behind me answered before I could turn. Ethan's voice floated down the stairs, calm as ever. Nathan, you weren't supposed to see this. And just like that, the night split in two. The brother I grew up with. Or the man I decided to become. I didn't look at him when I spoke. I kept my eyes on her. Unlock it. Silence filled the basement. Heavy. Final. Because in that moment, I understood something my father never did. Family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who you choose not to chain in the dark. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. Unlock it. Ethan laughed once under his breath, like I had just made a joke that did not land. You are overreacting, he said, stepping down the last stair. His shoes were polished. His shirt sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. He looked like a man hosting a dinner party, not like someone explaining why a young woman was secured to a pipe in his basement. She flinched when he moved closer. It was small. Most people would not have noticed. I did. I notice everything. It is how I built my life. You do not understand the situation, Ethan continued, his tone calm, measured. She needed a place to stay. She was not safe out there. I gave her protection. Protection does not require locks on the inside, I said. My voice stayed even. That was important. In our family, the first one to raise his voice lost the argument. He sighed, running a hand through his hair the way he used to when we were kids, and he had been caught lying about breaking a window. You always think in extremes, Nathan. It is not what it looks like. I turned to her. What is your name? She hesitated, eyes moving between us like she was calculating risk. Olivia, she said finally. Her voice was steadier now, but thin from disuse. How long have you been here, Olivia? Ethan answered for her. A few days. She shook her head slightly. 5, she said. 5 days. The number settled into my chest like a stone. There are many things I can justify in my world. This was not one of them. I looked back at my brother. Give me the key. His jaw tightened. You are making a mistake. No, I said quietly. I am correcting one. For a second, I saw it in his eyes. Not fear. Not guilt. Resentment. Like I had chosen her over him already. Blood first, he reminded me. The same words our father drilled into us since we were boys learning how to shake hands and never blink. Blood first, no matter what. I stepped closer to him until we were inches apart. Blood does not excuse everything. He searched my face, looking for hesitation. He did not find any. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. He placed it in my palm without breaking eye contact. "This will not end the way you think," he said. I did not respond. I walked past him and knelt in front of Olivia. Up close, I could see the marks where the metal had pressed into her skin. Nothing graphic, just proof of time. I kept my movements slow so she would not mistake me for something else. "I am going to remove these," I said. She studied me like I was a puzzle she did not trust. "Why?" she asked. "Because no one stays in the dark against their will," I answered. The lock clicked open. The sound was softer than I expected. She pulled her hands back immediately, rubbing her wrists, not looking at me. Freedom does not always feel like relief at first. Sometimes it feels like shock. Ethan watched from the stairs, silent now, and I realized something else in that basement. Tonight was not just about her walking out of here. It was about deciding who the Callahan name belonged to. Him or me. Olivia did not stand right away. She stayed seated on the cold concrete floor like her body had not yet received permission to move. Freedom after confinement is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is cautious. I stepped back to give her space. In my world, space is a luxury. I wanted her to have it. Ethan exhaled sharply from the stairs. "You are embarrassing me," he said, not to her, but to me. "You walk into my house and act like I am the criminal." I ignored him. "Olivia, can you stand?" I asked. She nodded once and used the wall to steady herself. Her legs trembled, not from injury, but from 5 days of uncertainty. I offered my hand. She hesitated before taking it. Her fingers were cold. Not weak, just cold. When she stood, she did not thank me. She did not soften. She looked directly into my eyes and said, "You are all the same." The words landed harder than anything Ethan had said. I did not argue. I had earned that assumption through years of silence. "What happened?" I asked her quietly. "Tell me in your own words." Ethan moved down 2 steps. "This is not necessary." "It is," I said without looking at him. Olivia swallowed. "He told me I owed him," she began. "That he had helped me when I needed it. That I should be grateful." Her voice did not shake now. It sharpened. "When I said I wanted to leave, he said I was confused. That I did not know what was good for me." I felt Ethan's stare on the side of my face. "You are twisting this," he said. "I never hurt her." That word hung there. Hurt. As if the absence of visible damage meant the absence of wrongdoing. "You locked her in a basement," I said calmly. "You took away her choice." Ethan's composure cracked for the first time. "You think you are better than me because you operate in boardrooms instead of backrooms," he snapped. "Do not pretend your hands are clean." He was right about one thing. My hands were not clean, but I never mistook control for care. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself, not in fear now, but in protection. "I want to leave," she said. "Not with him. Not with you. Just leave." I nodded. "You will leave," I said. "On your terms." Ethan let out a disbelieving laugh. "You cannot just undo this, Nathan. There are consequences." I finally turned to him. "Yes, there are. That is why we are going upstairs." The house felt different as we walked out of the basement. Larger. Colder. Olivia stayed a few steps behind me, like she was still measuring whether I would change my mind. I grabbed my phone from my jacket pocket and sent a single text to my security chief. "Bring a car. Quiet. No questions." Within seconds, the reply came back. 5 minutes. Ethan watched me with something close to panic now. "You would side with a stranger. Over your own brother." I faced him fully for the first time that night. "I am siding with what is right," I said. "If you cannot see the difference, then we were not raised the same way after all." Olivia stopped near the front door. The night air waited beyond it, cool and open. For the first time since I arrived, I realized this was bigger than a locked room. This was a fracture. And fractures in families like mine do not heal. They split everything in half. The front door opened, and the night air rushed in like something clean trying to replace something contaminated. Olivia stepped onto the driveway first. Barefoot. The concrete had to be cold, but she did not react. She just looked up at the sky like she needed proof that it was still there. Ethan stayed behind me inside the house. "You walk her out that door," he said quietly, "and you are not just humiliating me. You are choosing sides publicly." "Everything is public when you carry our last name," I answered. "You should have remembered that before you locked someone away." His expression hardened. "You do not understand what she is connected to." That made me pause. "Connected how?" I asked. He hesitated for half a second too long. That was enough. Outside, headlights turned into the driveway, slow, and controlled. My security detail always moved like that. No sudden gestures. No unnecessary noise. The black sedan stopped near the curb. The engine stayed running. Olivia looked at it, then at me. I am not getting into another car unless I know where it is going, she said. Fair, I replied. You choose the destination. Hotel. Friend. Airport. Anywhere within 1,000 miles. The choice is yours. She studied my face, searching for the catch. There was none. A hotel, she said finally. Somewhere anonymous. Somewhere with cameras and staff. I nodded once and gave the driver the instruction. Ethan stepped onto the porch. You think this ends with you playing hero, he called out. It does not end tonight, I said calmly. It begins tonight. Olivia moved toward the car, but stopped beside me. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly, so Ethan could not hear. Guilt is not a good enough reason. She was right. Guilt fades. Reputation can be rebuilt. I looked at her and answered honestly. Because I built an empire on control, and somewhere along the way I forgot that control without consent is just another word for fear. I will not have that in my house. She held my gaze for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. Not trust, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. Olivia hesitated before getting in, then turned back once more. If he comes near me again, she said, her voice steady now, I will not stay quiet. You will not have to, I replied. The door closed. The car pulled away slowly, disappearing at the end of the street. The silence that followed felt heavier than the basement had. Ethan walked down the steps until he stood beside me on the driveway. You just made an enemy inside your own family, he said. I kept my eyes on the empty road. No, I answered. I just decided what kind of man carries our name. And for the first time in years, I was not thinking about power or loyalty or optics. I was thinking about whether my father would recognize me anymore. And I realized something as the porch light flickered above us. I did not care if he did. The house felt larger after she left, like the walls had stretched to accommodate the silence. Ethan went back inside without another word, but I did not follow him. I stayed on the driveway, hands in my coat pockets, staring at the empty stretch of road where the taillights had disappeared. My phone vibrated. A message from my security chief. She is checked in. Downtown. Under a different name. No one followed. I read it twice before responding. Increase coverage. Quietly. He replied with a single word. Done. When I finally stepped back into the house, Ethan was in the kitchen pouring himself a drink. His movements were sharp now, no longer smooth. You always did enjoy making a statement, he said without looking at me. I leaned against the counter across from him. This was not about a statement. It was about a line. You crossed it. He laughed under his breath. You act like you have never bent a rule. I have bent many, I answered. I do not erase someone's choice to do it. His jaw tightened. She would have ruined us. You do not know that, I said. I know enough. There it was again. Enough. That word men use when they want control to sound like protection. I studied my brother's face and realized something unsettling. He did not see what he had done as wrong. He saw it as necessary. In our world, that difference matters. The difference between ambition and corruption is often a single private decision. The problem is, private decisions do not stay private for long. The board will hear about this, Ethan said. Mother will hear about this. I nodded. Good. Let them. His eyes narrowed. You would drag our name through scrutiny over a stranger. I pushed away from the counter and stepped closer. She is not the problem, Ethan. The problem is that you believed you could take away someone's freedom and call it care. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. For a brief second, something like doubt flickered across his expression. Then pride swallowed it. You think they will support you, he said quietly. You think you can rewrite the rules our father built. I met his gaze evenly. The rules were never meant to protect us from accountability. They were meant to protect the family from outside threats, not to shield us from ourselves. Upstairs, the house creaked as the air system kicked on. Normal sounds. Ordinary. It felt surreal that an ordinary house could hold something so extraordinary beneath it. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was an unknown number. I stepped away from Ethan before answering. Yes, I said. Silence for a moment. Then her voice. I am safe, Olivia said. The room she gave me has a window facing the river. I can see the lights. Good, I replied. There was a pause. I still do not trust you, she added. I did not expect you to. Another pause. But you did not look away down there. Most men do. The line went quiet after that. No thank you. No softness. Just truth. When I lowered the phone, Ethan was watching me. Who was that? He asked. A reminder, I said, slipping the phone back into my pocket. A reminder that power without principle collapses from the inside. And for the first time in years, I understood that the greatest threat to our family was not a rival organization or a business competitor. It was the decisions we justified in the dark. By the time the sun rose, the story had already begun to move without me. News does not need headlines in my world. It travels through whispers, through cautious glances, through the sudden quiet when someone enters a room. I did not sleep. I drove back to my own house just before 6 in the morning, the city still gray and undecided about the day. My security chief met me in the driveway. We need to talk, he said. I nodded once and walked inside. In my office, the blinds were half open, cutting the room into strips of light and shadow. Symbolic, if I had believed in symbolism. The board has been asking questions, he continued. Ethan called 2 of them before midnight. I let out a slow breath. Of course he did. He would not fight me directly. He would gather allies. Control the narrative. What is he telling them? I asked. That you are unstable. That you have become distracted. That you are risking the family reputation over an emotional impulse. Emotional impulse. I almost smiled. That is what accountability looks like to men who have never practiced it. Set a meeting, I said. Today. Noon. My chief hesitated. That is fast. That is the point. If I waited, doubt would grow roots. And in families like mine, doubt becomes division. He nodded and left the room. I sat alone for a moment, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. I looked the same. Same suit. Same posture. Same controlled expression. But something under the surface had shifted. The foundation was no longer blind loyalty. It was choice. My phone vibrated again. Olivia. I answered immediately. They offered me breakfast downstairs, she said. Her voice sounded stronger. Less hollow. I took it. Good, I replied. You deserve normal things. There was a pause. I keep expecting someone to knock on the door and tell me it was a misunderstanding. That I imagined it. That I owe him an apology. Her honesty caught me off guard. No one will tell you that, I said firmly. And if anyone tries, they will answer to me. Silence lingered on the line. You are used to being obeyed, she said quietly. Yes, that is true. Then this might be new for you, she continued. I am not someone you get to protect forever. I am leaving the city once I figure things out. The words landed steady. Not cruel, just clear. I did not argue. You should go wherever you feel safe, I said. If that is 1,000 miles away, then that is where you go. Another pause. Why are you not trying to stop me? She asked. Because protection without permission is just another cage, I answered. The line went quiet again, but this time it felt different. Less defensive. More thoughtful. I have a meeting at noon, I added. Things may become loud before they become quiet. If anyone approaches you, call me. I will not hesitate. She exhaled softly. I believe you, she said. It was the first time she had said anything close to trust. After we hung up, I stood and straightened my jacket. Noon was 3 hours away. 3 hours before I would stand in front of men who had watched me grow up and tell them that blood was not enough anymore. I had taken something from Ethan last night. Not power. Not money. Certainty. And certainty, in our world, is everything. Noon arrived without ceremony. The conference room on the 32nd floor was already full when I walked in. 12 men. 2 women. All of them older than me. All of them loyal to the name before they were loyal to the person. Ethan stood near the far window, hands clasped behind his back like he was the one presiding. He did not look at me when I took my seat at the head of the table. That was deliberate. Silence settled over the room in layers. I let it stretch. In negotiations, the first man to fill silence usually weakens his position. Finally, my mother spoke. Her voice was calm, refined, sharpened by decades of being underestimated. I hear there was an incident, she said. There was a decision, I corrected. Ethan exhaled softly. Here we go? He turned to the room. My brother acted impulsively last night. He interfered in a private matter and escalated it into a potential liability. Liability. That word again. Olivia reduced to a risk assessment. I folded my hands on the table. The matter was not private. It was unethical, I said evenly. And if we tolerate unethical behavior inside our own walls, we invite scrutiny from outside them. One of the board members, Mr. Halpern, adjusted his glasses. Are we discussing morality or optics, Nathan? Both, I replied. They are not separate. Ethan finally faced me. You are framing this as if I endangered the family. You are the one who drew attention. I met his gaze. I drew a line. There is a difference. A murmur moved around the table. My mother's eyes remained steady on me. Explain yourself, she said. I did not rush. 5 days ago, Ethan confined a woman in his home against her will under the justification of protection. That alone creates exposure. If she speaks publicly, if anyone traces it back, our credibility fractures. But more importantly, it is wrong. The last word landed heavier than the others. Mr. Halpern leaned back. We have survived worse accusations, he said. Yes, I answered. Because we handled threats from the outside. This was not an outside threat. This was internal decay. Ethan's composure cracked. You would humiliate your own brother in front of this board over a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding, I said. It was control disguised as care. And if we endorse that behavior, we endorse instability. The room went quiet again. My mother studied Ethan now. Is there truth in what your brother is saying? She asked him. Ethan hesitated. Just long enough. That hesitation did more damage than any accusation. Finally, he said, I managed a situation poorly. Managed. Another careful word. I did not interrupt. I did not need to. The doubt had already entered the room. My mother folded her hands. Our name survives because we adapt, she said slowly. If this decision prevents future exposure, then perhaps it was necessary. Ethan stiffened. You are siding with him. I am siding with preservation, she replied coolly. I held Ethan's gaze across the table. This is not about winning, I said quietly. It is about what kind of foundation we stand on. Because if it is fear, then we will eventually collapse under our own weight. The vote was not formal. It did not need to be. Authority shifted in small ways. Glances, nods, subtle alignments. By the time the meeting ended, I understood something clearly. I had not destroyed my brother, but I had stripped him of certainty. And in our world, certainty is power. The room emptied in slow layers, like smoke clearing after a controlled fire. No one slammed doors. No one raised their voice. That is how real shifts happen in families like mine. Quietly, permanently. Ethan remained by the window long after the others left, staring out at the river as if it had betrayed him too. I did not approach him immediately. Victory is dangerous when it looks like celebration. After a full minute, he spoke without turning around. You think this makes you righteous? I walked to the table and gathered my folder, keeping my tone steady. No, I think it makes me responsible. He turned then, and for the first time since last night, his expression was not defensive. It was wounded. You could have handled it privately, he said. You chose spectacle. I met his eyes. I chose transparency. There is a difference. His jaw tightened. You have weakened me in front of them. I held his gaze without flinching. If your authority depends on silence, then it was already weak. The words were not cruel. They were precise. He looked away first. That had never happened before. I left the building without another sentence between us. Outside, the afternoon sun felt brighter than it should have. The city moved normally. Taxis, pedestrians, coffee cups in hands that had no idea a family name had just shifted its center of gravity. My phone vibrated as I reached my car. Olivia. I answered before the second ring. It is louder online, she said immediately. What is louder? I asked. Articles. Anonymous sources. They are hinting at internal disagreements within your organization. I exhaled slowly. The board leaks when it feels unstable. It is how they test reactions. Are you safe? I asked. Yes, she replied. But I do not want to be the reason your world starts cracking. I leaned against the car door, staring at the skyline. You are not the reason, I said. You are the mirror. There was a pause on the line. I did not ask for any of this, she said quietly. I know. Another silence. He called me this morning, she added. Ethan. The words tightened something in my chest. What did he say? I asked, keeping my voice even. That he overreacted. That he was trying to protect me from people worse than him. That if I speak publicly, I will regret it. The air around me felt thinner. Did he threaten you? I asked. No, not directly. Just implied consequences. I closed my eyes briefly. Listen to me carefully, I said. You owe him nothing. Not gratitude. Not silence. Not fear. If he contacts you again, forward everything to me. I will handle it. You cannot handle everything, she said. You are not invincible. A faint smile touched my mouth. I do not need to be invincible. I need to be consistent. That is how trust is built. The line went quiet again, but this time it did not feel tense. It felt reflective. I am leaving tomorrow, she said finally. A flight west. Fresh start. I swallowed the instinct to ask her to stay. That instinct is how cages begin. Then leave knowing you walked out on your own, I said. Not because someone allowed it. After we hung up, I stood there longer than necessary. I had confronted my brother. I had faced the board. But the real shift was simpler than that. For the first time, someone had left my world without my permission. And instead of stopping them, I opened the door. Airports have a particular kind of silence before departure. Not quiet, just suspended. I stood 50 feet from the security entrance, hands in my coat pockets, watching travelers move with the urgency of ordinary lives. Olivia stood near the check-in counter with a single carry-on suitcase at her feet. No entourage, no drama, just a woman choosing distance. I had not told her I would come. I did not want to turn her leaving into another negotiation. She saw me anyway. Of course she did. You do not blend in easily when people are used to stepping aside for you. She walked toward me before I could decide whether to approach. You said you would not try to stop me, she said. I am not, I replied. Then why are you here? The question was not hostile. Just careful. I considered lying, saying I had business nearby. Instead, I told the truth. Because sometimes letting someone walk away without witness feels too much like indifference. She studied my face, searching for control hidden under courtesy. You look different, she said finally. I almost smiled. Different how? Less certain, she answered. That felt accurate. In my world, certainty had always been currency. Now it felt heavier. Ethan will not let this go, she continued. He believes he is right. I know, I said. That is. What makes it dangerous? She nodded slowly. I do not want to be the fracture between you. You are not the fracture, I replied. You are the exposure. There is a difference. The announcement for her flight echoed overhead. Boarding in 10 minutes. She adjusted the strap on her bag. I used to think powerful men were obvious, she said quietly. Loud. Demanding. But the most dangerous ones are the ones who think they are protecting you. The words were not an accusation. They were an observation. I accepted them. That is true, I said. She hesitated, then asked the question I had been waiting for. If I had not been there, if you never heard those chains, would you have ever questioned him? I did not answer immediately. Honesty costs something. Probably not, I admitted. Her eyes did not soften. They sharpened. Thank you for not pretending otherwise. The second boarding call sounded. This was the part where most men would make promises. Stay in touch. Call me if you need anything. I did not. Instead, I said, wherever you go, choose rooms with windows. Choose people who do not confuse possession with care. Choose doors that open from the inside. For a moment, something like emotion flickered across her face. Not gratitude. Something steadier. Understanding. You are not who I thought you were in that basement, she said. That might be the only compliment I earned this year, I replied. She gave the smallest hint of a smile. Then she turned and walked toward security without looking back. I stayed until she disappeared beyond the checkpoint. No dramatic goodbye. No music. Just distance measured in feet and then miles. As I walked back toward the parking structure, my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. We need to talk. Soon. I stared at the screen for a long moment before slipping the phone back into my pocket. The fracture had not healed. It had widened. But for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. Loyalty without conscience is not strength. It is inheritance. And I was no longer interested in inheriting the dark without questioning it. The drive back from the airport felt longer than it should have. The city lights blurred past my windshield, reflections bending across the glass like questions I had avoided for years. My phone remained silent in the passenger seat. But Ethan's message stayed in my mind. We need to talk. Soon. Soon in our world never meant calm conversation. It meant positioning. I pulled into my driveway just after 9. The house was lit, every window glowing like it was expecting someone. I stepped inside and immediately felt it. The shift. My mother was sitting in the living room, posture perfect, hands folded in her lap. She did not look surprised to see me. You went to the airport, she said. It was not a question. Yes, I replied. She studied me for a long moment. Attachment creates vulnerability. I remained standing. Indifference creates decay. Her expression did not change, but I saw the calculation behind her eyes. Your brother feels cornered, she continued. A cornered man makes reckless choices. Then he should not have created the corner, I answered evenly. She stood slowly, smoothing her jacket as if preparing for a formal event. You forced him to confront consequences publicly. That changes dynamics. I did not flinch. Consequences are not humiliation. They are correction. A faint sigh escaped her. You speak as if morality is a new invention. It is not new, I said quietly. It is just inconvenient. Silence settled between us, heavy but controlled. Finally she asked, do you regret how you handled it? I considered the question carefully. No, I said, but I regret that it was necessary. Her gaze softened slightly. That is the first honest thing you have said all week. I almost smiled. I learned from you. She walked toward the window and looked out at the dark lawn. Your father built this family on strength, she said. He believed control prevented chaos. I stepped beside her. Control without consent creates a different kind of chaos. The kind that waits in basements. The word lingered. She did not respond immediately. Instead she asked, and if your brother challenges you directly, then we address it directly, I said. No more shadows. No more private justifications. She nodded slowly, as if weighing the future. You have changed, Nathan. I kept my eyes on the reflection in the glass. Or maybe I finally stopped pretending I had not. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Ethan calling. I answered without leaving the room. I am coming over, he said. Not tomorrow. Now. I glanced at my mother. She heard the tone through the speaker. Fine, I replied. But we speak clearly. No games. A short pause. Clear is dangerous, he said. I ended the call before responding. My mother turned to me. Be careful, she said quietly. Not because he will harm you. Because he will try to make you doubt yourself. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Doubt is not the enemy anymore, I said. It is the reason I am standing here differently. Outside, headlights turned into the driveway. The conversation we had avoided was about to begin. And for the first time in my life, I was not preparing to dominate it. I was preparing to mean every word. The door closed behind Ethan with a quiet click that felt louder than it should have. He did not wait to be invited further inside. He walked into the living room like he still owned it, like nothing had shifted between us. My mother remained near the window, silent, observant. Ethan stopped a few feet from me, close enough that I could see the tension in his jaw. You embarrassed me in front of the board, he said. No greeting. No courtesy. I kept my posture relaxed. I addressed a problem. If that felt like embarrassment, then you should ask yourself why. His eyes flashed. Do not speak to me like I am one of your employees. Then do not act like one who misused authority. I replied evenly. The air tightened. For a moment, neither of us moved. We had stood like this before as boys, staring each other down over smaller things. Broken rules. Hidden mistakes. This was different. This was legacy. You think you saved the family, he said quietly. You think letting her walk away makes you principled. It does not erase what we are. I did not look away. I am not trying to erase what we are. I am deciding what we become. He let out a short, humorless laugh. You are naive if you think the world will reward you for restraint. The world does not reward restraint, I said. It rewards consistency. And I intend to be consistent. His expression hardened. So what now? You strip me of authority. You monitor my decisions. You make me answer to you. I took a step closer, not aggressive, just clear. No, I make you accountable to the same standards you expect from everyone else. There is a difference. His voice lowered. You chose a stranger over your own blood. I shook my head slightly. I chose a principle over convenience. Blood is not a shield against consequences. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Not weakness, just recalculation. You have changed, he said. Or maybe I stopped ignoring what I saw. I answered. Silence stretched between us. My mother finally spoke. This family survives because it adapts. If you two turn this into a war of pride, we all lose. Ethan glanced at her, then back at me. And if I refuse to accept your oversight? I met his gaze steadily. Then you create distance. Operationally. Publicly if necessary. I will not threaten you. But I will not cover for you either. The words were calm. That made them heavier. He studied me for a long moment, searching for hesitation. There was none left to find. Finally, he exhaled. You always wanted to be the one who decided the rules, he said. No, I replied quietly. I wanted the rules to mean something. That is the difference. The tension did not disappear, but it shifted. Less explosive. More defined. He turned toward the door, pausing before leaving. This is not over, Nathan. I know, I said, but it will not return to what it was. The door closed behind him again, this time softer. My mother remained silent for a few seconds, then looked at me with something almost like recognition. You did not dominate him, she observed. No, I said. I drew a boundary. And for the first time in my life, that felt stronger than control. The house felt unusually quiet after Ethan left, as if the walls themselves were deciding which side they belonged to. My mother moved toward the staircase without another word, leaving me alone in the living room with the echo of everything that had just shifted. I remained standing where he had faced me, replaying his expression in my mind. Not anger. Not exactly. It was displacement. He no longer knew where he stood, and that uncertainty would either change him or harden him. Both outcomes carried weight. My phone rested heavy in my hand. I had not heard from Olivia since the airport. I told myself that was a good sign. Silence can mean safety. Still, I sent a brief message. Just checking in. No pressure to respond. The message delivered. No reply. I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked toward my office. The city outside the window looked the same as it had yesterday. Traffic lights blinking. Pedestrians crossing streets. The illusion of stability. Inside, I felt something different. Not victory. Not relief. Something steadier. Responsibility. There is a cost to redrawing boundaries in a family built on obedience. That cost does not arrive all at once. It arrives in glances. In withheld information. In meetings you are no longer invited to. I understood that clearly now. My security chief knocked softly before entering. He hesitated in the doorway. Ethan has begun reallocating assets quietly, he said. Minor adjustments. But deliberate. I nodded once. Let him. Monitor, but do not interfere. If he wants to prove independence, he will do it visibly soon enough. My chief studied me. You are not moving against him. Not unless he gives me a reason, I replied. Correction is not revenge. He left the room, and I sat down slowly. The chair felt different today. Heavier. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a brief moment. I saw the basement again. The flickering bulb. The metal against concrete. Olivia's voice when she said we are all the same. That sentence still followed me. Not as accusation. As warning. Power can shift easily back into comfort. Comfort back into control. I would not let that happen again. My phone vibrated at last. A message from Olivia. Landed safely. New city. Different air. It feels strange to not look over my shoulder. I exhaled slowly, something in my chest loosening. I typed back. Keep choosing spaces that feel open. You own no one your silence. A few seconds passed. Then another message. I will not forget that you listened. The simplicity of it struck deeper than gratitude ever could. I placed the phone face down on the desk. Listening. That was new. My father had commanded. Ethan had justified. I had executed. But listening required something else. It required pause. That pause had changed everything. Outside my office, footsteps moved through the hallways of a structure built on decades of authority. Inside, I felt the beginning of something unfamiliar. Not weakness. Not rebellion. A recalibration. The fracture had not healed. It might never heal fully. But it was no longer hidden. And hidden damage is what? Destroys foundations. I opened my eyes and looked out at the skyline once more. The future would not be quieter. It would be clearer. And clarity, I was learning, demands more courage than control ever did. The night I returned to that basement, it was not because I had to. It was because I needed to see it without adrenaline, without urgency, without the pressure of choosing in 5 seconds. The house was empty. Ethan had not been back in days. The light bulb still flickered faintly above the concrete floor, casting long shadows across the wall where the pipe ran cold and silent. I stood there alone, hands at my sides, listening to the quiet. There were no chains now. No breathing. Just space. It is strange how quickly a room can return to normal once the evidence is removed. That is how denial survives. It counts on memory fading faster than walls. I walked to the spot where she had been sitting and crouched down. The concrete was still rough beneath my palm. I closed my eyes for a moment and allowed the image to return. Not to punish myself. To remember. There was a time when I would have handled something like that quietly. Contained it. Reframed it. I would have told myself that internal problems should remain internal. That loyalty required discretion. That blood required protection at all costs. Now I understood something my father never admitted. Protection without principle is possession. And possession always fractures trust. My phone vibrated softly in my pocket. A message from Olivia. Just a picture. A window overlooking a stretch of open water somewhere far from this city. The sky was wide. Blue. Endless. Beneath it she had typed 3 words. It feels lighter. I stared at the image longer than I expected to. I did not respond immediately. Not because I did not want to, but because I understood that her lightness did not require my presence anymore. That was the point. Finally I typed back. Keep it that way. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stood up slowly. Upstairs, the house creaked with the subtle sounds of night settling in. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like a reminder that everything shifts whether we approve of it or not. I turned off the basement light and walked back up the stairs without looking back. Some chapters do not close with forgiveness. They close with awareness. Ethan and I would never return to what we were. The board would test me again. My mother would measure every decision. But something irreversible had happened. I had chosen a boundary over convenience. I had chosen clarity over inheritance. At the top of the stairs, I paused for a final second and let the darkness settle below me. For years I believed strength meant control. That night, I learned it meant restraint. And for the first time in my life, I was not my father's son in the dark. I was a man who turned on the light, saw what was there, and refused to look away.